What's going on, everyone? So we got a little update in regards to Chris Paul and the Golden State Warriors and what is going to happen, right? A big question is, does he start for the Warriors? Does he come off the bench? What's going to end up happening? Would he be okay with coming off the bench? Chris Paul has kind of said that, he prefers to start, but whatever is needed to win a chip, that's what he's going to do. And according to Mark Spears, it is believed that Chris Paul will start in 5-minute spurts for the Golden State Warriors. So Mark Spears said, I do expect him to start. And I think it's like 5-minute spurts. I don't know that they really want his minutes to be high, but I think they're going to try it. I could be wrong, but that's the gist I'm getting. This isn't an opinion that he's expected to start. It's what I'm hearing. He's never not started in his career. So, first off, it's kind of always been a thing, right? Like, Chris Paul off the bench makes a lot of sense for the Golden State Warriors, him manning that second unit. You would imagine that they do want to keep his minutes low, right? Because a big problem with Chris Paul is he's been very injury prone the last few years. He did have that run where they made the NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns, in which he actually was pretty healthy. But outside of that, he's been a bit of an injury concern, especially in the playoffs. And a lot of that is the heavy minutes and mileage and responsibility that he has during the course of the regular season. Now, going to the Warriors, he's not going to be the second guy or even the first guy on the team. He's going to be the third, fourth guy on the team. And in some cases may end up being farther down the pecking order than that, right? You got Steph Curry, who's the number one guy, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, right? Chris Paul can add that just veteran leadership, a guy that can play on the ball and allow Steph Curry to play off the ball. That's kind of my thought, is that they'll put Chris Paul on the ball and kind of let him play orchestrator while Steph is running and doing all his theatrics around screens and stuff. Same thing with Klay. And then you have a guy in Chris Paul that can be a threat to just hit the open man or create for himself, knock down the mid-range. He can knock down the three. He can do a lot of things, right? High IQ. He can be an extension of the coach. I do get it. I don't really know how I feel about him starting. But if it's just for, argument's sake, right? Like, hey, let's have him start the first, 5 minutes or so that way at least he started. It doesn't take away from, like, his career of always starting. We play him in 5-minute spurts. Then he comes out, and then, we go with, like, maybe a bigger lineup or something like that. The problem is the Warriors are tiny, right? And, yes, like, Chris Paul, I think, will help stabilize some of the issues, some of the stability, right? He'll definitely be a stability for the Warriors in the sense of, like, the Warriors are very high turnover prone, right? They don't take care of the ball very great. Well, Chris Paul is a guy that's going to take care of the ball. He has one of the best assist turnover ratios in history. So you're not gonna have to worry about him making those silly mistakes that end up leading to him end up late in games or in key moments turning the ball over. Although he has had some pretty historic moments where he's turned the ball over in big moments. But, with this Warriors team, I think it will be all right. I'm not too concerned with Chris Paul working with the Warriors, right? It's just, will Chris Paul be willing to buy in and do what is needed? If he's willing to kind of just play the point guard and do what is asked and just kind of rely on Steph and everybody to handle the bulk of scoring and kind of just play the Magic Johnson role, right? And just play it in small little doses, play, 15 minutes a game or something like that, then I think that they could have success with him. Problem is that, again, they're going to be very tiny, and how good are they going to be defensively? Because, Chris Paul has still been very good at getting steals and generating steals, but he hasn't been a very good defensive player. He's just got the IQ. He's very good at reading passing lanes and very good at anticipating, like, when the ball is going to get thrown across and whatnot. And so that's led to him having success. It's not like he's just locking dudes down and just being a pest and a pit bull and just creating the turnovers. No, it's kind of more just like getting out in front of passing lanes and then, or, a bad pass and he's the guy that gets it. So Steph is not a great defensive guy. Chris Paul isn't a great defensive guy. Klay Thompson isn't the guy he once was. And you're going to have zero size I don't know how well that's going to work, right? Offensively, you're probably going to be able to score a bunch of points. You'll probably be very efficient offensively, and you're going to be pretty good. But I don't know, like, what do you do if Chris Paul starts? Do you have Draymond come off the bench, right? And go, my guess is you got to start Kevon Looney, right? You got to have Dre come off the bench because Kevon Looney is just such a good rebounder and such a good offensive rebounder. And he's a good physical, sizable body down there. He doesn't have the length or the size. He's not like, a 7-footer or anything like that. But he's really good at, positioning himself and just staying strong. So you're going to need him for the defensive end and securing defensive rebounds for any potential misses and hopefully hold his own down there. Where, Draymond, he's still a great defender, high IQ, but you need somebody that can operate and help run that second unit. And I think if Draymond is kind of that guy, like you're using him as the point forward, right? Or maybe even like the point center, because they don't have like anybody over 6'9". So that again is an issue. Or do you go with like Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond? Right? Like on paper, that sounds ridiculous. But then you put in perspective that, Chris Paul with his age and injury history, and he's not the guy he once was. All right. And then Klay Thompson, he's not the guy he once was. Steph is still Steph. And Draymond, in a lot of ways, isn't the guy he once was. So I don't know. And Draymond, with Chris Paul on the court, kind of is redundant, in my opinion. Again, defensively, Dre would be great to have in the starting unit, but you're not going to be very good defensively regardless, even with Wiggins and Draymond. You're not going to be great defensively. So what can you do besides defense? Rebound like a madman and make sure you hit shots. I think if you have Kevon Looney down low with the 4 wide and Chris Paul, Steph, Klay, and Wiggins, I don't think your defense is going to be that much worse. And I just think you'll rebound the ball better because Kevon Looney is a beast on those boards. And any missed opportunities by the opposing team, you could trust that he's going to be able to gobble those up and really put you in a position. And then to close games, that's where it becomes a problem, right? Because you can only have 5 guys on the court. So do you go with Draymond to close, right? Right, maybe start with Kevon Looney and then close with Draymond? Or do you, start with Draymond and close with Draymond? Or do you, start Draymond and close with Kevon Looney? It's tough because Chris Paul, you think Chris Paul's going to be okay with not closing games? Probably not. You think Draymond's going to be okay with not closing games? Probably not, especially if they lose that game. Like, you don't think Draymond's going to jump on his podcast and be like, I should have been I can see some real issues. That or the other solution would be bring Klay Thompson off the bench, right? And have Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney, where Klay Thompson's coming off the bench. And maybe that's the approach you go, but is Klay going to be okay with coming off the bench? Is that something he's going to be comfortable with? I think that would make sense and take a lot of pressure off of Klay Thompson, allow him to kind of be the main focal point in that second unit offensively. If he has it going, he has it going. And then you have Draymond and Wiggins as like the defensive perimeter guys. And then you have Kevon Looney, who's just down there, just gobbling up rebounds. Gives you at least a little more size rather than being super tiny. I think that's probably the way they go. But from the sound of it, it sounds like the Warriors want to go with like Chris Paul the first 5 minutes, pull him out, and then he plays like random spots here in the third quarter, and then, last 5 minutes of the fourth or something like that, right? Or the first 5 minutes of the fourth. My guess is that when Steph isn't on the court, Chris Paul is. right? So you figure Steph is going to play, 30, 35 minutes a game, somewhere in that ballpark. And so I think you get 5 minutes with Chris Paul on the court with Steph. And then the other, 13 minutes Steph isn't on the court. Chris Paul's playing like 10 of those. And he's getting around 15. Or he's playing all 13 minutes or whatever. And he's up to 18 minutes. And they keep him around 18 minutes a game. That's my guess. That's probably what I think ends up happening. Chris Paul plays 15 to 20 minutes a game on average. If Chris Paul has it going. I don't really, because, okay, Jordan Poole, I get why you wanted Chris Paul over Jordan Poole, right? Because Jordan Poole, one, is so hot and cold. He's turnover prone. Like, he's immature, definitely. Not a little immature, but immature. He's a little just concerning at times on the basketball court. Where Chris Paul, you get an adult, you get maturity, you get somebody that can handle the ball. Like, he's kind of the opposite of what Jordan Poole is. But also on the positives, right? Like, Jordan Poole's upside is game-winning impact, can win you a game by himself if he has it going. We've seen him do it. Where Chris Paul, he's not that guy anymore, right? But if he was the sixth man for the Warriors and really kind of rounding out and solidifying that second unit, I think that would be really valuable because you could use Chris Paul to get Steph more rest. Chris Paul can kind of be that balancer to that second unit with all the young guys that are just kind of just run and gun and a little immature. Chris Paul can kind of handle that and keep guys focused, keep guys in line, keep guys, in position, and be the sort of adult in the room for that second unit. And then you could have him and Draymond in sets and whatever, right? And I think that that's the best approach, but it doesn't sound like that's the route they're going to go. I'm not super stoked. I wasn't stoked when Chris Paul went to the Warriors to begin with. It didn't make sense to me. And I know that this was more of a move to just get off Jordan Poole's money than it was to really bring in Chris Paul. I just think, the last thing the Warriors needed was another guard. Another, 6'1" guard. Right? They needed a center. If they would have went and turned Jordan Poole into Miles Turner, I would have been like, all right, now we talking, right? You got Steph, you got Clay, you got Wiggins, you got Dre, and you got Miles Turner, right? A guy that could block shots, a guy that could rebound, a guy that could stretch the floor, would fit beautifully in that system. Now you're talking. Now instead of having Draymond and Looney both be liabilities offensively, it's just Draymond. So that takes a lot of pressure off. And now I thought that was the approach to go. But instead, they went and turned Jordan Poole into Chris Paul, who, yes, you can move off of his money and, you're in a good position. Or, if it doesn't work out, you could buy him out or whatever. But I just feel like it was a wasted asset. I feel like it was a wasted trade. And I don't know how well this is going to work, if at all. I get that Chris Paul adds that maturity and stability and will fix some of the Warriors' issues, right? But the Warriors' issues against the Lakers weren't solely turnovers. It was the lack of size. They were too small. And the Lakers got even bigger and deeper. And you look at Denver and it's Denver's bigger, right? You look at some of these teams, the Timberwolves. What if they run into the Timberwolves? Right? Or, some of these teams, it's just even the Grizzlies, with Steven Adams and stuff it's just I don't know. It's just the Warriors are tiny. And it's they really could have used, out of all things, a legit center that could have rounded everything out. Now, maybe the idea is we can run with Chris Paul, see how it works. If it doesn't work, he's a tradable asset because he's an expiring deal, right? Maybe some center becomes available, right? There's talks of the Pelicans potentially wanting to trade Valanciunas at some point this year. If the Pelicans are starting to look bad and they want to get something, maybe you could do like Chris Paul and like a first or something for Valanciunas. I mean, I don't think you really want to give up a first round pick for Valanciunas, but like he would solve a lot of issues for the Warriors. And that first round pick, if it's within the foreseeable future, is probably going to be not like this huge pick that you're going to have trouble with, and you're still in win now mode, right? So I don't know. It's just a thought, throwing it out there. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Chris Paul and the Warriors will work? Think it makes sense? You think it doesn't? How do you feel? What your thoughts are? Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.